The stars above gleamed coldly, a constant reminder of the vastness of the universe. But in one corner of the galaxy, the Galactic Empire looked down upon Earth and its inhabitants with scorn. They had conquered countless worlds, obliterated entire species, and built a reputation as the most powerful force in the galaxy. To them, humanity was nothing more than a primitive race, a mere blip in the grand scale of the universe. In the heart of the Empire's command center, Emperor Zoreth sat upon his towering throne, a figure of supreme authority. His face, cold and expressionless, observed the holographic display before him, an image of Earth. He sneered as he watched the blue planet spin slowly on the screen. The humans, who once thought themselves mighty, now reduced to a species he deemed unworthy of attention. "They're nothing more than an insignificant species," Zoreth muttered, his voice laced with arrogance. "A primitive race, unfit for the greatness of the galaxy. They are nothing more than a blip, soon to be wiped away." Around him, his officers and military generals nodded in agreement. The Empire had faced far more dangerous enemies, but none had posed a serious threat to its power. Earth's puny defenses, they believed, would be no different. The Emperor's laughter echoed through the Grand Hall as he dismissed the idea that humans could ever stand against them. He didn't even regard them as a challenge. To him, Earth was just another conquest, another world that would soon fall to the might of his empire. "Prepare for the invasion. Earth will be the next to bow to the Empire," Zoreth ordered, his words filled with contempt for the humans. As the fleet was readied for the journey, the Empire's generals prepared their warships, and their plans were set in motion. Across the galaxy, on Earth, far below in a small, quiet military base, a different story was unfolding. Captain Nathan Cross stood in front of his team, going over the latest briefing. He was tall, strong, and wore the expression of a man who had faced countless battles. For years, humanity had been preparing for possible threats from the stars, but they never expected an invasion like this one. Nathan's team was the best, experienced soldiers, trained in the art of combat and survival. But today, Nathan felt something in the air, an unspoken tension that lingered around them all. The briefing had been routine, but Nathan couldn't shake the feeling that something bigger was coming. As Nathan made his way to his command post, his thoughts were interrupted by an urgent message. His communication device crackled to life, and a voice, panicked and urgent, filled the air. "Captain Cross, you need to see this. The sky, something's happening. The sky's darkening." The words sent a chill down his spine. It wasn't a storm, it wasn't weather. This was something different. He immediately rushed to the observation deck, his heart pounding in his chest. Outside, the sky had begun to shift. The stars were disappearing, blotted out by massive shadows. Nathan's team was still in the dark about what was happening, but one thing was clear: this was no natural event. Something massive was coming. High above Earth's atmosphere, the Empire's fleet had already arrived. Dozens of colossal warships, cloaked in high-tech stealth shields, descended through the darkness of space. They moved with precision, each ship silently gliding into position. The fleet was ready to strike. The humans, still unaware of the threat, had no chance against the might of the Empire's advanced technology. As the warships prepared to descend into Earth's orbit, their cloaking devices flickered. The tension in the air was palpable, the hum of the alien ships barely audible. Suddenly, without warning, the first shots were fired. Beams of energy tore through the night sky, bright flashes lighting up the horizon. Explosions shook the ground as buildings crumbled under the force of the alien weapons. Back on the military base, the alarms blared, warning lights flashing red. Nathan's team scrambled into action, rushing to their posts. They knew they were outmatched, by a long shot. The Empire's technology was far superior, and humanity's defenses were nowhere near ready for such an attack. But Nathan wasn't going to give up. He couldn't. "Get to your stations. This is no drill. We fight, no matter what." Nathan barked, his voice full of determination. His words echoed through the chaos, cutting through the panic that was beginning to spread among the soldiers. Though the human forces were vastly outnumbered, and their weapons seemed useless against the Empire's shields, there was a flicker of hope, a small glimmer of resistance. Nathan knew that humans had always been the underdogs, but they had one advantage the Empire could never understand. They never gave up. Even in the face of certain defeat, they would fight with everything they had. As the first wave of alien ships landed, the ground shook beneath them. Nathan could see the massive alien vessels through the windows of the observation deck. The metallic dark ships hovered ominously over the city, their weapons charged and ready. It was as though the end had come. The humans stood no chance. Yet in the pit of Nathan's stomach, a fire began to burn. A fire that refused to let the aliens have the victory they so arrogantly expected. Human soldiers, despite their fear, formed ranks and prepared to defend their world. With outdated weapons and little experience in facing such an overwhelming enemy, they didn't stand a chance against the advanced alien technology. But they had something that the Empire did not: a desperate need to protect their families, their homes, and everything they held dear. The first battle had begun, and humanity was already facing the odds of an impossible fight. Yet Nathan Cross wasn't ready to give in. With a voice filled with the weight of command, he issued his orders, rallying his troops. "Hold the line. We fight for Earth." The Empire, in their arrogance, had underestimated humanity. They thought they could easily wipe the humans from the galaxy, but they had no idea what they were truly up against. And as the battle raged on, Nathan Cross and his team would prove that humanity, even in its most vulnerable moment, could not be dismissed as insignificant. As the alien warships hovered above, casting their shadow on the Earth below, one thing became clear: the Empire's overconfidence would be their downfall. Humanity's will to survive was stronger than any alien technology. And this was just the beginning. In the midst of the chaos, Nathan's heart raced. It wasn't over yet, but if the humans could hold their ground, there was a chance, just a slim chance, that they could turn the tide and make the Empire regret ever calling them insignificant. The battle for Earth had only just begun. The skies above Earth were darkened by the Empire's massive warships. Their stealth technology had allowed them to land undetected, and now the terrifying ships revealed their true form, each one larger than anything humanity had ever seen. The Empire was here to conquer, to destroy, to wipe out any resistance. Their shields were unbreachable, their weapons devastating. The first wave of attacks had already begun, and there was no time to waste. The Earth's cities, once bustling with life, were now under assault. High above, the alien warships unleashed devastating orbital bombardments, raining down lasers and plasma beams that leveled entire cities in seconds. The military scrambled, launching their own counterattacks, but the weapons they had weren't powerful enough to break through the Empire's advanced shields. Every shot fired from Earth's weapon systems bounced harmlessly off the alien shields. The enemy's forces were seemingly unstoppable. Captain Nathan Cross stood at the heart of the chaos. His team was positioned at the military command center, but the situation was becoming dire. His eyes darted across the tactical screens, watching as cities were obliterated. His mind raced, but there was no time to lose. The human forces were being overrun, and unless they could find a way to level the playing field, Earth would be lost. "Captain Cross," the voice of Sergeant Ramirez broke through his thoughts. "Our high-tech weapons are doing nothing. They're too powerful. We need something more." Ramirez's face was filled with frustration and fear, but Nathan could see the resolve in his eyes. It was the same resolve Nathan had seen in the eyes of soldiers countless times before. They wouldn't give up. Nathan's mind wearied. There had to be a way. The humans couldn't possibly match the Empire's technology, but there was something they had that the aliens couldn't understand. Humanity was resourceful, inventive. They didn't need to match the Empire's power, they needed to outthink it. "That's it," Nathan muttered to himself. a spark of inspiration igniting within him. We can't fight them head-on, but we can find their weaknesses. Nathan motioned for his team to gather around. We need to locate an unshielded ship. If we can destroy one of their scout ships, we can learn how their shields work. We can use that information to fight back. The team set to work, gathering their weapons and heading out into the city to track down one of the smaller scout ships. These ships, while still powerful, were less shielded than the massive warships in orbit. Nathan and his team knew this was their best chance. Hours later, they found what they were looking for. A small scout ship had landed near the outskirts of the city. It wasn't as heavily protected as the larger ships, but it was still a dangerous target. Nathan and his team approached cautiously, their rifles raised. As they neared the ship, Nathan felt a surge of adrenaline. This was their moment. Without warning, the ship powered up its engines, and a low hum filled the air. The team didn't hesitate. They opened fire, and the sound of gunshots rang out as the team targeted the weak spots in the ship's armor. The shields flickered for a moment before collapsing entirely. In a split second, the ship exploded in a massive fireball, the shockwave sending the team tumbling to the ground. Nathan's heart pounded in his chest as the dust began to settle. "Get up," he shouted, helping his team members back to their feet. "We need to secure the wreckage. There's information we need." The team rushed toward the remains of the ship, carefully extracting pieces of technology and data that might hold the key to defeating the Empire's shields. It was a small victory, but it was enough to plant the seeds of hope. If they could learn how to bypass the shields, humanity had a chance. Back at their base, Nathan gathered a group of the best civilian scientists and engineers. They had salvaged alien technology from the wreckage, and it was now up to them to figure out how to turn the tide. The scientists worked quickly, taking the pieces of the destroyed ship and analyzing the alien technology. Nathan watched as they worked, his mind racing with possibilities. Time was running out. The Empire wasn't going to wait for them to figure this out. Hours passed, and Nathan felt the pressure mounting. They were running out of time, but the scientists were close. They had found a weakness in the Empire's shields, a small flaw that could be exploited. Using the technology they had scavenged, they began to build a device capable of disabling the shields. Nathan's eyes gleamed with determination. This was humanity's chance. They couldn't fight the Empire with sheer force, but with ingenuity, they could level the playing field. The emotional weight of their situation was heavy on Nathan's mind, but there was no time to dwell on it. He knew that every minute they spent working on this device brought them one step closer to survival. As he walked around the makeshift lab, checking on the progress of the device, he couldn't help but notice the faces of his team. Tired, but resolute, they were pushing themselves to the limit, driven by the knowledge that the future of Earth depended on their success. But as the humans worked tirelessly to build the anti-shield device, tragedy struck. One of Nathan's most trusted soldiers, Sergeant Bonner, was stationed on the outskirts of the base, guarding their perimeter. Bonner was a quiet man, always the first to charge into danger and the last to retreat. He was known for his bravery, and he'd earned the respect of everyone on the team. Without warning, an enemy drone appeared, hovering silently above the base. It was armed and ready to fire, targeting the center of their operations. The drone was fast, too fast for any human weapon to take down in time. Nathan's heart raced as he watched the drone zero in on their location. Bonner saw the danger and made a split-second decision. Without thinking, he sprinted toward the drone, weapon raised. He knew what he had to do. The drone was too close, and there was no time to waste. With a single leap, Bonner launched himself into the air, aiming for the drone with a grenade in hand. He fired the grenade just as he collided with the drone, and the explosion rocked the base. Bonner's sacrifice saved the team, but it cost him his life. The explosion threw him clear of the blast zone, but the damage was fatal. As the dust settled, Nathan and his team rushed to Bonner's side. His body was lifeless, but his actions had saved them all. Bonner, Nathan whispered, a lump in his throat. His hands clenched into fists. He gave his life for this. We won't let it be in vain. Bonner's death sparked something deep inside Nathan and the rest of the team. It wasn't just a fight for survival anymore. It was a fight for vengeance. They had lost a brother, a hero, and they would make sure the Empire paid for it. The death of Bonner became the rallying cry for the human forces. The spark of rebellion had been lit, and it was growing stronger with each passing moment. The Empire had made a terrible mistake. They had underestimated humanity. As Nathan and his team prepared to launch their first major counteroffensive, the weight of their mission settled over them. There was no turning back now. They had taken their first step toward victory, and they would honor Bonner's sacrifice by fighting to the bitter end. The battle for Earth had only just begun, but humanity's resolve had never been stronger. The resistance on Earth was growing. What began as a scattered, desperate fight was now turning into something far more formidable. Humans, armed with the knowledge they had gained from their initial victories and defeats, were beginning to adapt and fight back in unexpected ways. The shock of the Empire's initial attack had worn off, and in its place was a burning resolve. Earth's survivors were no longer cowering in fear. They were fighting with everything they had. Captain Nathan Cross had become more than just a soldier. He was a symbol of hope. His tactical brilliance, honed through countless battles, was now guiding the resistance in ways the Empire could never have predicted. Using cloaking devices scavenged from the wreckage of the Empire's ships, Nathan and his team could slip past the Empire's patrols and strike where they were least expected. These surprise attacks on the Empire's supply lines were becoming more frequent, and the Empire was struggling to respond. The humans were fast, calculating, and relentless. The resistance was no longer the underdog. They were becoming a force to be reckoned with. Nathan's mind worked like a machine, constantly evaluating, adjusting, and adapting. He'd spent countless hours studying the enemy's tactics, learning their weaknesses, and now those weaknesses were being exploited at every turn. Each ambush was executed with surgical precision, each trap set with ruthless efficiency. The Empire's forces, so confident in their superiority, were caught off guard time and time again. The humans' unpredictability was their greatest weapon. In one daring attack, Nathan led a small team into the heart of the Empire's forward base, cloaking themselves and using the shadows to their advantage. The Empire's soldiers were unaware of the humans' presence until it was too late. Explosions rang out as the resistance disabled key infrastructure, throwing the Empire's operations into disarray. Nathan watched from a distance as the Empire's command center erupted in flames. This was their first real victory, and it sent a shockwave through both the human resistance and the Empire itself. But it wasn't just human tactics that were changing the course of the war. Humanity's ingenuity had once again shown its power. With the help of civilian scientists and engineers, the human forces unveiled a new kind of weapon, a new type of AI drone. These drones, though once considered primitive compared to the Empire's highly advanced machines, had been reprogrammed to adapt to the Empire's own tactics. They were designed to learn and evolve, making them unpredictable and difficult to counter. These drones could cloak themselves, just like their human masters, and hack into the Empire's systems, turning the Empire's own technology against them. Once they infiltrated the enemy's network, they could disrupt communication, disable weapons, and even feed false information to the enemy's commanders. What was once considered an obsolete piece of technology had now become humanity's secret weapon. The drones were a game changer, and they allowed the resistance to strike with devastating precision. General Kale, the leader of the Empire's fleet, was beginning to feel the pressure. At first, he had dismissed Earth as a threat, confident that the Empire's superior technology would crush the humans without effort. But as the days passed, he started to realize the gravity of the situation. The humans weren't crumbling under the Empire's might. They were fighting back, and they were fighting smart. Kale watched as his fleet suffered one setback after another. The humans' ambushes, though small, were crippling his supply lines. His ships were being hacked and disabled by the very drones he had underestimated. Each failed mission was a blow to his pride, and the cracks in the Empire's once unified front were beginning to show. The tension was palpable within the Empire's command center. High-ranking officers began to question their leader's judgment. Whispers of doubt spread like wildfire. The once unstoppable Empire was faltering, and the humans were the ones responsible. Kale had lost the element of surprise, and now, every move he made was met with the cunning and resourcefulness of the human resistance. In the midst of this uncertainty, General Kale ordered a devastating counterstrike. He knew that if he didn't crush the humans now, they would only grow stronger. The time for subtlety was over. It was time to put an end to the resistance once and for all. Kale's plan was brutal. He would target the heart of the human resistance, a secret base hidden deep within the mountains, where Nathan and his team were planning their next strike. It was a gamble, but Kale was willing to take it. He ordered his fleet to launch a full-scale assault, intending to obliterate the base and wipe out the leadership of the human forces in one fell swoop. As the Empire's warships moved into position, the tension in the human camp grew. Nathan knew something was coming. The Empire had been quiet for too long, and he could feel the storm gathering on the horizon. He gathered his team together, preparing for what he knew would be their greatest test. "Get ready," Nathan said, his voice low but filled with conviction. "The Empire is coming. We're not going to make it easy for them. We've got one chance to turn this around, and we're going to take it." His words were met with resolute nods from his team. They had lost comrades, they had fought impossible battles, and yet here they were, standing strong. Bonner's sacrifice was still fresh in their minds, and they would honor it with every breath they took. They had come too far to back down now. As the sun set on the horizon, casting long shadows across the camp, Nathan's heart raced. He could hear the distant hum of the Empire's ships as they approached. The humans had taken the fight to the Empire, and now the Empire was coming for them. It was a moment of reckoning. The battle for Earth had entered a new phase, one where both sides knew that only one would emerge victorious. The humans had gained ground, but their path to victory was far from certain. Nathan knew that they were still outmatched, still outgunned. But as the Empire's fleet descended on their base, he couldn't help but feel a surge of hope. The humans had proven time and again that they could adapt, and that's what made them dangerous. The tide of the war had begun to turn, and with it, the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. The time had come for the final confrontation. The Empire, enraged and desperate to crush the human resistance once and for all, had gathered its full might. A massive fleet of warships, led by the Empire's flagship, hovered above Earth, ready to unleash a devastating assault that would erase any hope humanity had left. General Kale had vowed to make this the end of the war. But Nathan Cross and his ragtag coalition of human soldiers and alien defectors were ready to make one final stand. Nathan knew that this was their last chance. They couldn't afford to fail. The resistance had already suffered heavy losses, and now they had the opportunity to strike at the heart of the Empire. A daring raid on the flagship, the symbol of the Empire's power, was their only hope to turn the tide once and for all. If they could destroy the Empire's command ship, they could cripple the entire fleet and shatter the Empire's leadership. Nathan's plan was bold, risky, but it was their best shot. The human forces, alongside a group of alien defectors who had turned against the Empire, launched a surprise attack on the flagship. Their ships, equipped with cloaking technology and newly developed weapons, slipped past the Empire's defenses and into the heart of the battle. It was a chaotic, brutal space battle, as explosions rocked the void of space, and the sky above Earth was lit up with the fiery trails of laser beams and missile strikes. The human and alien ships fought side by side, a united front against the overwhelming power of the Empire. The Empire's fleet was still far superior in numbers and technology, but the humans' ingenuity and unrelenting will to survive made them a formidable opponent. Nathan led the charge, directing his team with precision and daring. The battle was fierce, But the humans fought like they had nothing left to lose, and in many ways, they didn't. As they breached the flagship's outer defenses, Nathan's team boarded the colossal ship, engaging in close-quarters combat with the Empire's elite soldiers. The corridors of the flagship became a battleground, filled with the sounds of gunfire, the clash of metal, and the screams of those caught in the crossfire. Nathan's heart raced as he pushed forward, each step bringing him closer to the heart of the Empire's command. But the victory came at a terrible cost. During the heat of the battle, one of Nathan's most trusted allies, Bonner's brother, who had joined the resistance after the death of his sibling, was killed in an explosion. The blast sent him flying across the corridor, his body torn apart by the force. Nathan heard the explosion, felt the shockwave, but he couldn't process it at first. When he saw Bonner's brother's body, lifeless and broken, the weight of the loss hit him like a freight train. It wasn't just another soldier lost in battle. It was someone who had fought beside him, someone who had trusted him to lead them. Nathan knew that this fight was about more than just defeating the Empire. It was about the sacrifices each and every person had made. Bonner's brother had given his life to protect Earth, to protect humanity's future. And that loss, that final sacrifice, lit a fire inside Nathan like never before. "Hold the line," Nathan shouted to his team, his voice filled with fury and pain. They couldn't afford to stop. They couldn't afford to grieve. The Empire was still out there, and they had to finish what they started. As the team moved further into the flagship, the final showdown began to take shape. Nathan and General Kale were about to meet in the heart of the ship, where the fate of the war would be decided. The tension was palpable as the two men, leaders of their respective sides, prepared for the ultimate confrontation. Nathan's heart pounded in his chest as he neared the central command room. He knew what he was up against. General Kale was a master tactician, a ruthless commander who had orchestrated the Empire's strategy from the very beginning. But Nathan wasn't the same man who had first faced the Empire's forces. He had seen too much, lost too much, to back down now. The final fight began in the cold, metallic halls of the flagship. Kale stood tall, a vision of arrogance and power, as he faced Nathan. His eyes burned with hatred, but beneath it all, there was a hint of fear. He knew that if Nathan defeated him, the Empire would crumble. The weight of that knowledge hung in the air, like a storm cloud, ready to burst. The two men collided in a brutal combat, their weapons clashing in the confined space. Kel's strength and speed were unmatched, but Nathan's resolve was his true weapon. Every strike he delivered was fueled by the memories of all those who had fallen. Bonner's brother, his fallen comrades, and the billions of lives that would be lost if the Empire succeeded. Nathan's strikes were precise, his movements calculated. He had spent years preparing for this moment, honing his skills and his mind. The fight was a dance of fury and precision, each man pushing the other to their limits. Nathan's anger, his sorrow, and his pain blended together, driving him to fight with everything he had. Finally, with a swift, well-placed strike, Nathan disarmed Kale and knocked him to the ground. The Empire's general lay before him, defeated. Nathan stood over him, his breathing heavy, his body aching from the battle. Kale looked up at him with disdain, but Nathan could see the fear in his eyes. "You thought you could crush us," Nathan said, his voice cold. "You thought we were nothing. But we're more than that. We're human." With a final, swift blow, Nathan ended Cal's reign of terror, watching as the Empire's leader fell, never to rise again. The flagship, once the symbol of the Empire's power, was now a wreckage. The resistance had won. Nathan stood in the heart of the enemy's command ship, his body bruised and battered, but his spirit unbroken. The battle was over, but the war had changed humanity forever. The Empire had underestimated them. They had thought that humanity was insignificant, weak. But in the end, it was the humans' resilience, their refusal to back down, that had proven the Empire's greatest mistake. And as Nathan looked out at the wreckage of the Empire's flagship, he knew that humanity's victory was just the beginning. The galaxy would never forget the day that the humans took their stand. The dust was settling on Earth's battlefield, the final battle with the Empire over. The once proud forces of the Galactic Empire were in full retreat, their might crumbling in the face of humanity's unexpected resilience. The victory had not come easy, but it was hard-earned, and it was clear to everyone that this was a turning point in the galaxy's history. General Kale, the Empire's most feared commander, had fallen. His death had been the catalyst that shattered the Empire's hold on its territories. Without Kal's guidance, the Imperial fleet lacked direction, and it quickly fell apart. Nathan Cross and the remaining soldiers of Earth's resistance stood victorious, their eyes set on the future. There were no celebrations, no grand speeches, only the quiet realization that they had achieved the impossible. The Empire, once thought to be invincible, had fallen, and Earth was now free. The retreating alien ships, once filled with arrogance and pride, were now scattered across the stars, leaving behind only debris and broken dreams. Back in the Empire's heart, the Emperor watched in disbelief as his empire collapsed. His most trusted generals were dead or in retreat, and the once feared warships of the Empire were now little more than a shadow of their former selves. The Emperor had never imagined that the so-called primitive humans would stand up to his mighty fleet, much less defeat it. His pride and arrogance had been his downfall, and now he was left with nothing. His empire was disintegrating, and he was powerless to stop it. Exiled and humiliated, the Emperor was left to watch as his galaxy-spanning empire crumbled under the weight of its own corruption. His once loyal subjects turned against him, and the stars that had once been part of his domain now became distant and unreachable. The galaxy, it seemed, was no longer his to command. The Empire's power had been built on fear and dominance, but the human resistance had proven that willpower, ingenuity, and unity were more powerful than any weapon the Empire had ever created. On Earth, Nathan and his soldiers were hailed as heroes. The world they had fought so hard to protect now belonged to them, and their efforts had not gone unnoticed. The galaxy, which had once looked down on humanity as a primitive species, now saw Earth in a new light. The humans who had once been dismissed as insignificant were now recognized as a force to be reckoned with. Other alien civilizations, who had previously stayed neutral or sided with the Empire, began to reach out to Earth, offering alliances and support for rebuilding efforts. Earth's new allies brought with them technology and knowledge that would help rebuild the planet's infrastructure, making it stronger and more advanced than ever before. In the aftermath of the battle, Earth's leaders, along with Nathan and his remaining soldiers, worked tirelessly to restore their world. Cities that had been destroyed by the Empire's orbital bombardments were rebuilt, and the human race began to recover from the devastation of war. The scars of battle would remain, but they were a testament to humanity's resilience and its ability to overcome adversity. Nathan, once a soldier in the trenches, now found himself a leader in the rebuilding efforts. Though the war was over, his work was far from finished. As the years passed, Earth grew stronger, more connected with the galaxy around it. The once primitive species was now regarded as a vital player in the intergalactic community. Humanity had proven itself on the battlefield, and now it was showing that it could thrive in a galaxy full of advanced civilizations. The humans, who had once been relegated to the fringes of space, now stood shoulder to shoulder with other species, their contributions valued, their voices heard. But as Nathan stood on Earth's surface, gazing at the stars, he couldn't help but feel that the story was far from over. The victory over the Empire was a major milestone, but there was still much to be done. Humanity had proven its strength, but the galaxy was vast, and new challenges loomed on the horizon. Earth's newfound allies were not the only ones watching. As Nathan looked up at the night sky, he knew that Earth had made a powerful enemy in the Empire's fall. The Emperor's defeat may have ended one chapter, but it was only the beginning of another. His thoughts were interrupted by the sound of a distant hum. Ships, dark and menacing, emerged from the edges of the galaxy, their engines lighting up the black void. New fleets, not from the Empire, but from distant corners of the universe, appeared on the horizon. They were massive, their designs unlike anything Nathan had seen before. These ships, sleek and dangerous, carried with them a sense of purpose that was unmistakable. The galaxy, it seemed, was about to change once again. The camera panned across the night sky, the ships forming a vast armada as they glided toward Earth's orbit. The sight was a warning, a sign that the peace Earth had earned might not last long. Nathan's eyes narrowed as he watched the ships approach, his mind racing. This was not the end of humanity's journey. It was only the beginning. A chill ran down Nathan's spine as he realized that this was no ordinary ship. This was something far more powerful, and it was observing Earth with a purpose. He knew that the galaxy was full of unknown dangers, but this ship felt different, more menacing. It was as if the universe itself was watching Earth, waiting for humanity's next move. As the camera zoomed in on the ship, Nathan's mind raced. Was this a new threat? Or was it an ally, testing humanity's resolve? Only time would tell. But one thing was certain. Earth's battle for survival was far from over. The victory over the Empire had been monumental, but the galaxy was vast, and there were many more challenges on the horizon. With Earth's future still uncertain, Nathan turned away from the stars and walked back into the building. The peace that humanity had fought for would not be easily kept. But if history had shown anything, it was that humanity would face whatever came next with the same determination, strength, and unity that had seen them through the darkest days of the Empire's reign. The camera panned back to the mysterious alien ship, which lingered in the shadows, as if waiting for the right moment to make its move. As the screen faded to black, a sense of anticipation filled the air. Humanity had entered a new chapter in its history, but the story was far from over. The galaxy was full of mysteries, dangers, and opportunities, and the dawn of a new era had just begun. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in history, Earth was ready to face whatever came its way.